Hey, it's Mazzy. Welcome back to It's the Music, stupid number 66, where I grab 5 albums from my collection, showcase them to you. There's no theme this time, but these are records. 3 of them I've already played today. I'm going to play the remaining 2 this evening. I'm going to start out with I Feel Like I'm Fixing to Die, the second album from Bay Area's Country on the Fish from Berkeley, California. Probably the most overtly political of the San Francisco bands. Now, a lot of their music is not. Obviously, Joe McDonald, when he went solo as a folk singer, he was very political, very environmental. Songs about early songs about climate and saving the whales and the things you think are cliche, but they're important. And this came up at a time because right now we're in the midst of a crisis pulling out of uh, the Paris Climate Accords. Like we want to stand alone. We're the only Western country out of that. Even Canada and Mexico are part of it, and kind of atrocious, really, when you think about it, with all the stuff going on with the snows in Florida and Arkansas and the fires in California. But I love this record, and I want to talk about it because the opening track, the Fish Cheer, and I Feel Like I'm Fixing to Die, that became huge because of Country Joe's solo version of that at Woodstock. At the beginning of this album, he yells out, "Give me an F, give me an I, give me an S, give me an H. What's that spell fish? What's that spell fish? What's that smell fish?" And they go into this lyrical thing that Joe based on an old kind of traditional song, I Feel Like I'm Fixing to Die. The interesting thing about that is that song, the publishing was owned by Chris Strockwitz, and he really was a part of the movement here. And he started our Hooley Records and recorded these great blues players and blues artists and Zydeco artists and country artists and very rootsy bluegrass artist, and just died several years ago. Great man. Met him several times, talked to him several times. And there's a wonderful book on our Hooley, the great photographs, because he would take photographs of the artists that would adorn the covers of those wonderful albums on our Hooley. But he helped this band early on and bought the rights to that song. So when it was on the Woodstock album and made millions of dollars, literally, he got very rich, and he really kind of built up on our Hooley, put a lot of it back in the company. He put it back in our Down Home Music, the record store that he was an owner of in El Cerrito. Our Hooley was eventually sold to Smithsonian Folkways, but and he gave money back to the band and the members of the band, Country Joe, who wrote that song. This is a wonderful album. Country Joe had probably one of the best voices of all the San Francisco psychedelic bands, and it really is showcased on this album. Beautiful. It's not quite as psychedelic as their debut album, Electric Music from the Mind and Body, which is one of the great psychedelic albums of San Francisco. But this album, I guess in 1968, I believe this came out with Bruce Barthold, Chicken Hirsch, David Cohen, Barry Melton, a great kind of really kind of tinny guitar sound that was kind of wild. Did a lot of Eastern solos. Literally, there's a song on here called Eastern Jam, which has just a great instrumental on this. But Who Am I? The vocals that Joe does on that is just a really beautiful song. And the song Janis, written about Janis Joplin. Country Joe McDonald had dated, going out with Janis, and an important part of the scene. But what a beautiful record this is. This is a second copy I got. My original copy I literally wore out, which is rare for me, and it came with the fish game, and I had cut this out. My buddies and I would play this game. It was a board game about places in San Francisco. You'd have cards, you'd have the cutout markers. We literally played this. So once I got a job in record stores, they were still manufacturing the fish game in it. Now when you look for used copies, people want to see, is the game included? But a great sounding record, again, contains giant full color fish game. There you go, right there. Country on the Fish, 1968, an important record of the scene and a beautiful record. Next, a record. This is from 2003, and this is one of my favorite albums by the Jayhawks, Rainy Day Music. Now, I'm not one to tell you the whole history of Golden Smog, the Jayhawks, Wilco, Uncle Tupelo, that whole clique. And, I have friends that will know the whole story, can tell you the whole story. But I was into the music, listening to these music. I just never got into this period of time in the 90s and the 2000s, following the history of the members of the band and who was in what band, who played on what record. I think they were down to 3 members at this point, but this is one of my favorite records. This is produced by Ethan Johns, the son of Glenn Johns, the great producer, British producer like his father. Executive producer Rick Rubin, just because it's on American Music, his great label there. But I love this, led by Gary Lourdes with that beautiful voice. He's got one of the best voices of all those artists. I know we like Jeff Tweedy's voice and we like Jay Bennett's voice and all that, but I think he had that beautiful voice. Maybe that's part of the problem. People like a little off. That's why we like Dylan so much. It's not the perfect voice. It's not like Phil Oakes or someone. But I just think this is a gorgeous album. A lot of rich acoustic guitars and arrangements. You have Tailspin, which is an upbeat song, which is really wonderful. Save It for a Rainy Day. Now, this is the vinyl version. It came out with an extra disc, or extra, actually, side 4 in the case. Because remember, this is really during the CD era still. And you have a half side, or a side D, of demos on here, which are really kind of a nice addition, very acoustic based, and I love those. They weren't on the original. I think when this came out, probably very limited on vinyl. I never had the original version on it. But one of the most beautiful songs on here, which is a chilling song, is a really romantic song, You Look So Young. Every time I hear that, I get goosebumps, and the way he sings it, the way it kind of builds, and it's such a lovely song and really beautiful arrangement. So Angeline also was a wonderful song on here. So it's 2 LPs, American Music on American Record Company, American Recordings. That's where Johnny Cash, Rick Rubin brought Johnny Cash, resurrected his career, big with obviously hip hop, rap, but Jayhawks, Rainy Day Music, beautiful artwork on the cover, just a beautiful, beautiful cover, and a great band. This is, again, when they were the trio here, brought some other artists on, some guest artists are on here, including, I think, Matthew Sweet is on here, and who else? Some other people, too. I forgot, Jacob Dylan, Chris Stills, son of Stephen Stills as well. Bernie Ledden on banjo, who was original member of the Eagles there. Just a great record. The Jayhawks, if you don't have any Jayhawks, the first couple albums are great. They're all good. The later stuff, it's a little more hit and miss, but this one from 2003 is a fantastic, wonderful record. Another record from 2003, just happened to pick something else from that exact year. My favorite band from Wales. And I've showed them before, not this particular album, but this is Super Furry Animals. And this is from 2003, as I just said. One of my favorite albums of theirs is from 2001, Rings Around the World. Amazing. I go back and forth which one I like the best. This came out obviously on CD, a DVD surround. I didn't hear the DVD surround of this one, but I certainly heard the previous album, which is amazing. I'm not a surround music guy usually, but that's a killer surround on DVD. Don't have it set up anymore in that style, but they finally reissued this on vinyl in the last, 2-3 years tops. And again, it's that mix. There's acoustic guitars are the bass, but then there's electronic effects. There's some almost like a country Americana with electronica and dance music and really thick arrangements, based with the lyrics and the songwriting of the lead singer Griff Rhys. They've since sort of parted, unfortunately. Griff has some amazing solo albums, and the rest of the band has their now I'm gonna forget the name. I have the album of the backup band has their own Rem Koolhaas. That's totally wrong. You're going to put it in the comments below. I'm just blanking out. But they're more electronic, whereas Riff has gone more of this almost like loungy, uh, beautiful singer and singer-songwriter thing, but produced. The rest of the band took the electronic side that they use a lot on this album. But this is a very political album as well, but in a different way. Politics, anti-war. Opens up with Hello Sunshine, where they take this clip. It's sort of a found clip from an album from the 1960s, I believe, and goes into Hello Sunshine. I love Griff's vocal on this. And this band is very Beatlesque, but it's Beatlesque plus. There's a layer of things that's totally original to them, not just a Beatle copy band. Like, remember, like you know, we would talk Badfinger, Raspberries. A lot of bands are Beatlish, Beatlesque. This is them, but they get in a whole different thing. One of the great records, one of the songs on here is Golden Retriever. There's 3 tracks per side, most on this. Sex, War, and Robots. Now, the key here, the most intense, wonderful song that is a 6-minute, 44-second song is called Piccolo Snare, with this drum thing that kind of happens towards the end of it. But it's a great sounding record, a killer track. So if you guys are streaming and if you want to watch on YouTube, listen to Piccolo Snare. Buy the album though, or a CD if that's your thing, and listen to Piccolo Snare and just crank that mother up. It is intense. It is good. Venus and Serena. What a hysterical song about the tennis playing sisters. So Father, Father, there's an earlier version, Father, Father number 1, Father, Father number 2 on here. But every song on here is great. It's such a mix of sonic wonders, oral sensations, incredible electronics, pop psychedelic, Beatlesque, Super Furry Animals, from Super Furry Animals, Phantom Power. Really good record. I played this today and I cranked it, and it was just it lifted my spirits quite a bit. The political things are that with a really kind of wry sense of humor, the way Reese pulls together lyrically. Love it. Something else. Now, this is a live album, and I haven't played this one. I pulled it out because this is the new hat I got in the last couple of weeks. Australian company, and this is a Kubra. It's basically the Kubra hat, felt classic, wonderful hats, the best hats out of Australia. Very like the equivalent would be Stetsons, and made out of Texas in America. And this was from a gift certificate I got for my big birthday in August, and I finally used it at this wonderful hat shop. If you haven't watched it, watch that video. It was a couple weeks ago. But I want to show Leonard Cohen's Song from the Road. I love this cover. These are recordings from 2008, 2009. This came out in 2010. And Songs from the Road. This came at a time which was crucial in Leonard Cohen's life. In 2005, his manager at the time stole $5 million, his entire savings. And when you're that age and everything's gone, you have to kind of rebuild everything. So he came down from the mountain, down from his spiritual retreat, and started playing again. I mean, he was making records every few years, but he went on tour, and all of a sudden it clicked. Very much like when Johnny Cash did the stuff with American music, and all of a sudden a younger, newer audience, new people discovered Leonard Cohen. I saw 2 of the shows in his last years of his life. But I remember going back to, it was either the late 80s or early 90s when he played at the Zellerbach Auditorium in Berkeley. And we had done a photo shoot for University of Berkeley, UC California, Berkeley, and we got free tickets to show. And I got 2 tickets. Michelle was on a photo shoot on location. She couldn't go. So I asked everyone I knew. Nobody wanted to go see Leonard Cohen. They were like 2nd or 3rd row tickets in this beautiful theater on the UC Berkeley campus. Nobody wanted to go. So I finally, someone was in front, I gave someone the ticket. I didn't scalp, I didn't go. It was one of the best things I had ever seen. This is that comeback of Leonard Cohen, and this is when he was selling out arenas, and he had this magnificent return. And of course, there's a version on here of that great song, Hallelujah, recorded in 2009 at Coachella. And I thought it was always interesting how that song, became this anthem for the Christian right. And it's really, there's a line in it especially, it's very spiritual, and it's a beautiful song. And of course, artists like John Cale and of course Jeff Buckley really lifted it and become even more famous. The great version Katie Lang sings in Canada. I think it was the tribute for Leonard Cohen probably after he passed. What a beautiful version. But there's a sadomasochist version line in the lyric that they don't always use when the religious groups sing that song. She tied me to a kitchen chair. It's hysterical. But unlike his earlier acoustic, very minimal songs with some female backgrounds, what's great about Leonard Cohen, his voice is even deeper than ever here. And if you've heard the later albums, of course, you know that. But you still got the female voices. You actually have, again, his ongoing collaborator around the time, Sharon Robinson, who wrote and performed on his records, sings on background here. But you got a nice big band with mandolin and guitars and keyboard. It's just really, really well recorded. And I tell you, one great Jewish mother who really kind of sports a great fedora. I love Leonard Cohen. From acoustic guitar to the keyboard electronic stuff he does and the arrangements. This album, Songs from the Road, Leonard Cohen, I am all in on Leonard Cohen. I have everything that's been put out. But from 2010, this live album, and that beautiful, iconic silhouette of a man with a long coat and a fedora. How can you not love that, right? Lastly, I'm going to talk about a record you all know, and you know it well. And it's not anything that's going to surprise you. But in 1968, I was just starting high school. This is the winter of 1968. And I heard that KSN Radio was going to play this new album, a double album of one of my favorite artists. My favorite artist, you know who it is already, at a certain time while I was in school. And I jerry-rigged, I don't know exactly how I did it, but I had a tape recorder, portable tape recorder, with a microphone. I couldn't even patch it directly, I don't think, to the station when they were like at noon, for instance, maybe. They were going to play the entire album straight through 90 minutes. So I set the timer on this portable tape recorder to record the Beatles' White Album, 1968, the double album, which is actually called The Beatles. We know it now. We refer to it as the White Album, with this amazing cover art by Richard Hamilton, a modernist artist. Paul McCartney brings in, he designs this cover with the embossed. Now, this is not an original. I do have original top loaders, mono and stereo. I have my original American with the stamped number, but this is, now I realize it's the music stupid, not about sound, but this was just brought up again. Steve Hoffman was on Steve Westman's live stream, and he was talking about this album. Someone brought it up again. This is the best sounding version of the White Album you can get. So start your engines, go to Discogs. In 1978, there was a UK version of this. It's probably expensive now, if you can get it. They recut this album at Abbey Road. And the version that came out, and I had this in my collection for decades without even listening to it, just because I collect various pressings. There's other white vinyl copies. I believe there's some French ones and some others. So you have to have the British one. It's on white vinyl. No version of this record sounds as good as this. This record is a must in stereo. Never came out in mono in America, only in the UK. It's interesting, different mixes. To me, it's novelty in mono. Of course, the stereo I prefer. One of my favorite, I love all the Beatles albums. Who am I joking? But this is the original one. What's the Dead Wax? YEX709. Is that right? I might be wrong, but go search Steve Hoffman. He even says it. He says this is the one. I didn't need Steve Hoffman to tell me, but a number of years ago, someone pointed it out to me. Do you have a copy of that? It's the best sounding one. I said, really? So I pulled it out. I played all my copies. I probably have 25 at least copies, not including compact discs, of the White Album, and mine is in pristine shape. This is the best version. So this is a little departure for me, talking about not only musically, but sonically, a great album. And it's a favorite album of theirs, of an artist you like. Of course you want a good copy. Again, if you those of you who watch me regularly know, it's the music first, stupid, but you want the best possible sound. But you don't have to keep searching, in my opinion, for, well, that's up to you. Anyway, full circle. I come back home that day, and this was maybe a week or two before the White Album was released. I had the entire album on reel-to-reel tape. It was a reel-to-reel tape. I probably must have done it at slow speed to fit 90 minutes. I don't recall what I did, but I had the entire album. And I had a band, my buddies in my band. We learned Why Don't We Do It in the Road and Birthday. Of course, the two standard progression songs. And we played this, we were playing at a Stonestown, a shopping center, an outdoor dog show, the following weekend. We got hired from the mall management, a rock band to play. We were like, 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds. And we played two Beatles songs. And I remember it saying at the microphone, these are two songs from the upcoming Beatle record. So we debuted them, very much like, if you recall, when Jimi Hendrix played the Saville Theater, like the weekend, apparently the week Sgt. Pepper came out. All the Beatles, I believe, and Eric Clapton and Jeff Beck were in the audience. And Hendrix plays Sgt. Pepper, Lonely Hearts Club Band. He had just gotten the record, learned it. And can you imagine that? The Beatles just released that. And of course, we're no Jimi Hendrix. But it just reminded me of that when Steve Hoffman was talking about this record, and I played this, and it's excellent sounding. Now, other records, versions of this sound good, UK versions, but what a great mix. Some would say it's a mess. I even love Revolution #9. I think it's the perfect thing, and it goes into that beautiful John Lennon song, Goodbye, sung by Ringo, with just the orchestras and those women's kind of vocalists in the background. Such a great record. So much to dive into on this record. Anyway, it's the music, stupid. Number 66. It's January in 2005. Thanks for watching. Be strong. The Resistance, Mazzy loves you.